streaming online at WDKN.com.
I love listening to it over and over. I love it.
This is 101.5 The One and WDKN, Dixon's Country Music Home.
Where can you get information on the latest news and events in Dixon County? Right here on Know Your County on WDKN 1260 AM and 101.5 The One FM. Know Your County keeps you informed about events that matter to you. Now, here is your host for today's Know Your County.
And good morning to each and every one of you. A pleasant good morning to each and every one of you, and welcome into Know Your County. Kenneth Forte back at the microphone with you this morning, and Justin Spurlock. We were able to convince him to stay around to hang out with us this morning. A name that you may know if you read his column, a voice you will definitely know as you hear him on the Old Timers program and on this show as well, Know Your County. Justin, thanks for staying around. How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. It's good to be here with you.
Make sure we got the right mic. Okay, you there? Talk again.
Let's see. Are we on now?
We're on.
I think
now.
I hear it. Good.
Yes, we are.
It's good to be here with you this morning again.
Yes. Hey, let's talk. Continue our conversation. Justin is going to be later this month become the host of the Old Timers program and Know Your County, so we're excited about that, and glad to convince him. I mean, being a history teacher and having all of the access to all of this history, there's, we've talked about this a number of times. There's so many people here in Dixon County that have a part of that history to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So those people will now, as we've continued to try to do this show, Warren Medley, it's following Warren Medley was just, I just did it. No, that's a high bar.
Right.
That is a high bar. But you, Justin, got a chance to hear his shows firsthand. That's a bar that it has to be exciting that getting a chance to do this.
Well, I think it's important. I think for anybody that's going to attempt to do these shows, like you said, it's big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
At least I had the opportunity to be around Mr. Medley and kind of understand, his vibe of what he was doing and, what his shows were really all about.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to continue that. Obviously, that's one thing that really draws me to want to do this is, the history of it, how important it is. I've always thought of these two shows as, something that's done for the community.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that to me that's important. These two shows, they have a lot of history, and they go back, a really long time. And, it's a really long running radio show that, has an importance to the community that I would love to see keep going. So jumping in here and attempting to fill his shoes, I'm definitely going to try to do that. But like you said, I mean, it's almost impossible when you're dealing with a legend of that caliber.
Yeah.
But I think that's why the shows are so special to a lot of people.
Well, and it really is, and that's why as you've talked to people about being on the show, a lot of folks but a lot of people have a story to share on the history of Dixon County.
Yeah, and I think that's something that for years Warren tried to really do is to get people in here and tell their stories, and that way that they could in a way be recorded for history purposes.
Yes.
Mr. Reagan has, like you said before, has a lot of these shows that are recorded. And thankfully we have, the Reagan family that has done a lot to preserve our history.
Yeah.
A lot of the stories that I tell are really just things I've expanded on that Alan Reagan's already talked about in the Skits and Bits pieces that have been published for years. And, thankfully they've been able to kind of keep that going. And, I draw from a lot of the things that they have. I like to go, I always tell people we have two history museums in Dixon. You've got the official one down there, the Railroad Museum. Zach Kinslow runs that thing really well. He's a good buddy of mine. And that's a great place to go and see some history, but don't forget to go by the Reagan's Friendly Neighbor store and say hi to Dale, because
it's a living, breathing history.
There are more
Dixon.
pictures of Dixon in his store than you will find anywhere. And then if you have a question about something, he'll be glad to,
Yeah.
talk to you. Of course, he wants to do business with you, so go down there, and buy
Yeah.
some stuff. But while you're down there, check out the pictures and just the history. I mean, there's so many cool things. I go down there sometimes and just look around and try to get
Yeah,
some
do that.
inspiration for a story, and you'll find it there.
Yeah, I mean it is for us. It's phenomenal because the stories and the past shows of Warren G. Medley, Dale and has been able to provide us with a lot of those shows because and so thanks to him, Warren Medley lives in our heart, but we get to hear his voice as we get to do encore presentations of shows that he has done that have touched the lives of a lot of people. So yeah, that's huge, and that's part of the strength of this community is the Reagan Friendly Neighbor Store, because it is store and museum.
Yes, and a lot of people don't realize the museum part.
Yeah.
But if you've never been into his store, and you love Dixon history, you gotta stop by at some point and just check it out and say hi to the Reagan family.
Yeah, just yeah, and as you said, buy something. I don't think he won't oppose you buying a piece of furniture.
Right? No.
Not at all. Excuse me. Now, how do you bring your students into this life of radio?
Well, it's interesting that I think at one point we thought radio and newspapers would kind of go away, but as we're finding out, they're sticking around. They're just figuring out different avenues.
Oh yeah,
so kids listen to the radio. They just listen to it in the form of a podcast. So it's just a little bit, different, but they understand the concept of it. And, and I'm hoping that maybe some of them will tune in and hear some of the things that we've got going on and learn a little bit of history. I mean, there are, high school students are into history. There are several. We have a club over at the Dixon County High School, Dixon County History Club. And you'd be surprised at some of the interest that some of these students have. I mean, it's all across the board. You've got some that, want to get into media and do different things like that. And you've got some that really want to get into history and do some different things like that. So it's been really interesting connecting with some of the students over at the Dixon County High School and seeing what their interests are. And I think you'd be surprised as to how many of them are interested in the radio. Maybe they see it as more of a, like I said, more of a podcasting and looking at it more of through the internet nowadays. But I mean, of course, WDKN, we're on the internet streaming right now. So that's something that we're definitely familiar with. But, they're embracing it. And I've told a few of them, I've talked to them about being on the radio a couple times, and they think it's cool. They think it's interesting. And so, who knows? Maybe we can get a few of them to come down at some point and talk to us down here. I think that the community would love to hear from some younger voices and hear what they've got going on. They've got some interesting projects going on over there at the high school, and I know Thursday mornings that we hear from a lot of them.
Yeah.
And that's fun to listen to. I always enjoy that on the drive into school Thursday mornings here in Troy, and a lot of the students get on here, and so that's fun. And so some of them do even have the experience of being on the radio.
Yeah.
And so that's cool, and that's preparing them for different things they're going to do. All these experiences that we have in life prepare us for something else. So, I'd love to get some of them on, and of course I do love to hear them on Thursday mornings as well. So if your listeners haven't tuned in on Thursday mornings,
the Cougar Report is 7:00.
Absolutely, you hear from the students and assistant principal and a lot of other people on there. So
that's a fun show. We've been doing that show now for about 8 years, somewhere around in there. A long time.
It plays in the hallways when we come in too. So I listen to it in the car, and then as I come into the school, they actually play it in the hallway. So the students are listening to you every Thursday morning. They're hearing their peers on the radio, and believe me, they talk about it, and they think it's a very interesting and cool thing to be on the radio.
It is. There's something to be said about being live on the radio. Folks, you're tuned in to Know Your County here on 101.5 The One in WDKN. I'm Kenneth Forte, and he's Justin Spurlock. And a name that you'll know that you've read his article, and now you'll hear his voice on the radio. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back on Know Your County in just a moment.
Business internet is a must. Paying bills, sending emails, updating your website, running social media campaigns, even your phone and credit card machine need reliable internet. But your options are limited, and every provider has its drawbacks. That's why RFC Broadband for Business is here. A truly local business offering wireless high-speed internet options for your business. Affordable prices, no wires, no contracts, no data caps. RFC Broadband for Business, 615-375-8662 or rfcbroadband.com. Simple billing, rural coverage, and again, no contracts or data caps. It's all designed with you in mind. See the difference a local company makes. RFC Broadband for Business, 615-375-8662 or rfcbroadband.com. Currently not available in all areas. Call for availability.
In times of joy, in moments of grief, broadcasters come through, even when all else fails. Today, with more ways than ever to experience the moments that transform our lives, Americans still choose broadcast radio and television more than all other media combined. We are the local broadcasters of radio and television, reaching more people, touching more lives. Brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Does your vehicle need new tires or basic service before heading out on the big trip? Or maybe you're just going up the road. Open from 7 to 5 Monday through Friday and 7 to 1 on Saturday. The United Farm and Home Co-op Tire Shop can provide services like oil changes, alignment, brakes, and even suspension repair. With brands like Mastercraft, Firestone, Continental, and more, you will always get the highest quality service and products. United Farm and Home Co-op Tire Shop is your one-stop shop for all your basic repair and tire needs.
All right, we're back here on Know Your County. I'm Kenneth Forte, and he is
Justin Spurlock.
Justin Spurlock. So I just want to let you introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun this morning. I will say that I've really enjoyed being in here talking with you for the last little bit.
Yeah, this is fun, and we've talked about this for a good while now, and so we're happy to be able to bring this to fruition. And there's it's something to be said about hearing a local voice on the radio.
Absolutely. I think it's key to being a local radio station. You got to have those local voices in here, and like we talked about before the break, having people from the high school in here on Thursday mornings, and you have Freeman all the time. He's a local guy who's out in the community. I run into him all the time, and it's just good to have those voices to not only be on the radio, but to be out there in the community and people seeing them and running into them, and it gives a personal connection to the radio, and hopefully we can bring a little more of that personality to Saturday mornings going forward.
Well, it has been here and been a part of this station for many, many years. 2 shows that were started back in the 1950s when the radio station came on, the Old Timers program, which of course evolved into the Old Timers Day celebration. Mr. Warren G. Medley and several others pulling that off and putting that together, and it has lasted all of these years. And then Know Your County, something that has been a part of this station as well. And the thing about this show, Know Your County, is really it's a way. We have so many people, Justin, moving to Dixon County.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many small businesses opening up in Dixon County. And this show gives us an opportunity to introduce some of these businesses and some of these new folks to what's going on in Dixon, and bringing them on the radio, and really just exposing their business to our listening audience.
Absolutely. And one of the first articles that I wrote in this series that I'm doing, probably wrote it about 3 months ago now, but one of the first ones I talked about that kind of opening up was one of the reasons why I'm so interested in talking about the history of downtown Dixon and the history of Main Street here is because of how happening this place is now, and how exciting Main Street is. Whereas, and I talked about this in the article, 20 years ago when I was working at the radio station, and back then, of course, the radio station was over where High Cotton is now, so it was just on the other side of Main Street. But, there weren't a lot of places to go and get some food in downtown. Of course, we had Hodges Jewelers was still around back then. You had, you had
Neighbor Store,
Friendly Neighbor Store and Goalpost, and a lot of those staples were here. But if you wanted to get a cup of coffee or a pizza or a hamburger, those things weren't an option on Main Street 20 years ago. They are today, and I'm really excited about that. And I love telling the people about the history of downtown because it's really cool to learn about. But a lot of the business owners too are people who are newer to the area. And so they're learning the history themselves. They don't maybe know the history of the building that they're in. I know I talked to a guy that owns Katie's Ice Cream one day about the history of that building and how, the hardware store, sporting goods store, and some of the different things that were in that building. And it was exciting. He thought it was really fun, and I ended up finding a picture and giving it to him. And I've had the same conversation with several other business owners on Main Street, and they're interested. They want to know the history about the town. And I think sometimes it's even the people who aren't from here that are the most interested, I found out.
Well, when you look at the businesses that have, the longevity of, we mentioned the Friendly Neighbor Store, we mentioned Hodges, but Fuzzles.
Yeah, Fuzzles.
Ownership has changed, but Fuzzles is still the same Fuzzles that it's been in 80 years.
Yeah. 1936, I think, comes to mind, 37, somewhere in there.
So, I mean, it's been around. Those kinds of, cornerstones of downtown have weathered history.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's saying a lot. And businesses coming and going, but those staples have been there. As you said, Goalpost and they've been there for years.
Long time, and very thankful that they have stayed here and contributed to this community and have kept those businesses going for so long. And then we've been lucky to see some of these others kind of sprinkle in. And I'd say you'd be hard-pressed if you went up and down Main Street looking for a building. I don't know if you'd find one these days that's available to rent. We're pretty much full, which is a good sign for the way things are going in our community right now. You got a lot of new businesses on Main Street, and even outside of Main Street, you look at Mulberry and the things that are going on over there, and just seems like every little corner of the downtown area is experiencing this rejuvenation, and it's exciting to be here and be a part of it and explaining kind of where we were and how we got here. Because if you look back 100 years, I mean, it was a really happening place back then, and we're kind of just now getting back to it.
Well, when you think about the War Memorial Building, what it was back then and what it is now, where the chamber is housed, but you can still use the upstairs. So, I mean, that's a big that's a big impact on this community.
Yeah, the War Memorial Building has a lot of history behind it, but I don't remember in my younger years going in there a whole lot. It was beautiful place. You'd walk by it, but it seems like here lately we've been holding a lot more events there. You've got the chamber who is using the bottom floor, which I think is making it more of the center of town again, and so people are being drawn to that building, and it's an exciting place with a lot of history. It goes back, that site there before it was the War Memorial Building. It was actually the Dixon Courthouse. And I've talked about this in one of my stories. So if you want to learn more about that, maybe go to DixonCountyHistory.com and scroll down. I think it's like the fourth story. But I write about there was a courthouse controversy. Charlotte had always been the county seat where the courthouse was. But when we get to the 1890s, Dixon is getting big, and it's outgrown Charlotte. And there was a vote. A little fraud, maybe, I'm not sure. But in the end, they decided, look, we're not going to take the courthouse away from Charlotte, but we'll let Dixon have its own courthouse and kind of operate that way for a few decades. I think until the late 1920s, there were actually two dueling courthouses. And in the late 1920s, the stock market crashes and we go into the 1930s. There's just not a lot of money. And so both courthouses need the money to be rehabbed. But Charlotte ends up winning the money, of course, because that's the historic courthouse. So they end up tearing down the Dixon Courthouse. They put the War Memorial Building there, and the War Memorial Building has now lasted almost 100 years.
Wow.
So
that's just a little history.
Just a quick little, let me just kind of throw that in there real quick.
A little down and dirty history. All right, you tuned in to Know Your County, and you just found some information that you may not have known. on this show. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Business internet is a must. Paying bills, sending emails, updating your website, running social media campaigns, even your phone and credit card machine need reliable internet. But your options are limited, and every provider has its drawbacks. That's why RFC Broadband for Business is here. A truly local business offering wireless high-speed internet options for your business. Affordable prices, no wires, no contracts, no data caps. RFC Broadband for Business, 615-375-8662 or rfcbroadband.com. Simple billing, rural coverage, and again, no contracts or data caps. It's all designed with you in mind. See the difference a local company makes. RFC Broadband for Business, 615-375-8662 or rfcbroadband.com. Currently not available in all areas. Call for availability.
In times of joy, in moments of grief, broadcasters come through, even when all else fails. Today, with more ways than ever to experience the moments that transform our lives, Americans still choose broadcast radio and television more than all other media combined. We are the local broadcasters of radio and television, reaching more people, touching more lives. Brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Does your vehicle need new tires or basic service before heading out on the big trip? Or maybe you're just going up the road. Open from 7 to 5 Monday through Friday and 7 to 1 on Saturday. The United Farm and Home Co-op Tire Shop can provide services like oil changes, alignments, brakes, and even suspension repair. With brands like Mastercraft, Firestone, Continental, and more, you will always get the highest quality service and products. United Farm and Home Co-op Tire Shop is your one-stop shop for all your basic repair and tire needs.
All right, we're back here on Know Your County. Kenneth Forte along with Justin Spurlock chatting this morning. We welcome Justin into the radio family. One of the things we were talking about before the break, Justin, is all of the, the different locations in Dixon, Charlotte, and White Bluff, and Burns. And of course, now Burns is in White Bluff. The percentage of growth that we just saw in the new census is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
What does Dixon look like, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Because Burns is continuing to grow. White Bluff is continuing to grow. Of course, the city of Dixon. And, as a whole, you're talking about 56,000 people in the county. Where do we go? I mean, what do you think as far as the growth is concerned?
That's the question, right? It seems like the areas that are closer to Nashville, on those corridors of I-40 and Highway 70, seem to be having the most growth. White Bluff, Burns, but I do think that the other parts of the county are going to see a lot of growth as well.
Yeah.
And I look at it kind of from the real estate aspect. People know me as a teacher, but I also kind of dabble in real estate a little bit and have a license with that. And so I do kind of help some people buy and sell homes in this area. And people are coming from all over. I mean, they're coming from, states all over the country. They're hearing about the quality of life we've got out here in Dixon County. They're hearing good things. And people are referring other people to come here, too. My neighbors are actually from California, and they said the reason they chose Dixon is because their neighbors in California came to Dixon, told them how great it was. They came out here looking for a house, found one, and so now that we're getting referrals.
Little California is what somebody said about Dixon. I mean, there's so many people that, to your point, that are moving here, and people are buying houses sight unseen.
Yeah.
Which I like. I was, when somebody told me that, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's either you're desperate to get away from where you are,
mm-hmm.
or you just loved what you saw.
And I think people are loving what they see.
Yeah.
We're close enough to Nashville where you've got all that exciting country music stuff, and Nashville is a really cool kind of it city right now. Mm-hmm. And we're not that far away. I mean, you can get to Nashville. I used to work in Nashville for a few years and still lived at the same house here in Dixon. I mean, you can get there in a reasonable amount of time and be back, and then it's a really good community. We've got really good schools here. I can attest to that, working in the school system and working in other school systems. I think we've got a really good, community from that standpoint, good schools, good places to live. We were talking earlier about Main Street and all the different things that you have here. I mean, just about anything you want to buy an engagement ring, you want to get dinner, you want to get you a special shirt printed, furniture. I mean, so many things. Yeah.
Get a wedding dress. There's so much. Get
so much.
Makeup and all that stuff, facial stuff. All of that exists right here on Main Street in downtown.
And we don't, I think maybe 20, 25 years ago, we had reasons to maybe drive to Franklin or drive to Nashville for certain things. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think pretty much anything that you want. I mean, we even have a skateboard shop. Yeah. I don't know if I ever thought I'd see the day when we have a skateboard shop and a skateboard park right here in downtown Dixon. Yeah. That used to be something you'd have to drive to Franklin to be a part of, Nashville. Now we've got it here. So
what were thought to be more progressive cities.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
communities.
We're becoming that, and I think it's great. And your question is, where do you see Dixon going? And I just see it getting better, which is all the more reason to record the history and talk about where we came from, because we're going to see exponential growth in the next few years, in my opinion. Yeah. Hopefully it's good growth, but I think it's definitely coming. No matter what we do, people want to come here. So.
Well, Justin Spurlock is a voice you'll hear on this radio show and as well as the Old Timers program starting later this month. So we're excited about that and hope that you will tune in to support him and this radio station. We'd love to have you, if you're a business or a service, we'd love to have you as a sponsor of the show as well. But that's going to do it. The time flies when you're having fun. We hope to have you listening every day right here on Dixon's only live and local radio station, 101.5 The One in WDKN. Have a great weekend, everybody. God bless.
Thank you for joining us for Know Your County on WDKN 1260 AM and 101.5 The One FM. Tune in each Saturday at 8 a.m. for more interviews and information on what's going on in Dixon County. If you're interested in being a guest on Know Your County, email us at news@wdkn.com. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to joining you again next week on Know Your County.